As we gather together, we acknowledge that the land upon which our church and homes exist is the ancestral land stolen from the people of the Shoshone-Bannock, the Shoshone-Paiute, Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai, and Nez Perce nations, along with many other tribes whose names have been lost in history. We acknowledge that our presence here today is founded upon the exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples. With this acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to the work of dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism. We honor indigenous peoples' connection to the land and support their right to sovereignty.
Good morning. I got so caught up in the moment, I forgot it was my turn. And it's so wonderful to see such a full house today. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I feel like everything these days is worthy of our applause and admiration. I'm the Reverend Sara LaWall. It is my great honor to serve this beloved community. We're so glad that you've joined us today, both in person and online. We are a community gathered to nurture spiritual growth, real connection, and faithful action for a better world. All who join us in the spirit of curiosity and love and justice are welcome this morning, whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, your presence is a blessing. Let us take a moment and welcome our online community officially. If you'll turn and wave to the cameras on the back wall there. It is a reminder that we worship as one wide community connected beyond our walls. In joining us this morning, even if it is your first time you are entering into a community dedicated to making visible in the world a profound love, by nurturing spiritual growth, encouraging curiosity, and enacting justice. We have a lot of newcomers with us this morning. It's always a delight to know that folks are continuing to seek us out and join us in these times. Welcome. If you're online and new with us, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat and fill out a newcomer form so we may warmly welcome you. And if you're joining us in person and you're new, we invite you to fill out a newcomer form. You can access those through the QR codes on the bookmarks in each of the entryways, or go directly to our website and find that form there, so we can keep you apprised of all the ways that you can connect and engage with what is happening in our fellowship. And there is a lot happening. I have a few announcements for the good of the community. For newcomers, whether it's your first time or you've been here for a few weeks or a few months, we are in the midst of our newcomer series we call the Inquirer series. This is a chance to get to know a little bit about us and about Unitarian Universalism. We meet after the service down that hall at the end there in person, and we cycle through these series regularly throughout the year. So we're meeting today for a series on congregational life. We have some adult RE classes that are now open for registration, so we invite you to check those out on our website, where you can register for some really exciting opportunities to learn together, grow together, and be in community together, both online and in person, a combination of the two. And I want to let you know that in 2 weeks, on November 6th, directly after the worship service, our board and social justice council and I will be holding a congregational town hall, a chance for the board to update you on where it's at and some of its ideas and projects and activities, a chance for you to ask questions, and a chance for us to talk about our social justice resolutions that we are putting up for a vote and get your thoughts and feedback. Each month, our congregation donates 25% of its unpledged plate offering to a local organization we call a plate partner, whose mission aligns with our social justice mission. And this month of October, you all know we are supporting the work of our local Planned Parenthood, a worthy cause, whose mission it is to provide reproductive care, access, and education no matter what. And their work, as we know here in Idaho especially, is most needed. So we thank you in advance for your generosity. There are many ways that you can give and contribute to the ministry of this congregation and to our plate partner. You can go online to our website and click Give at the upper right corner of your screen. You can use one of those QR codes on the bookmarks in the entryways, or you can deposit your cash or check in the offering boxes just inside the doorways here. However you choose to give, you nurture this community and our work, and we are so grateful for it. Our spiritual theme for the month of October is courage. And today's service explores the courage to embrace a bittersweet mindset, to welcome melancholy and sadness and all of those experiences and expressions of life that sometimes we try to keep a little bit at arm's length, and it does take courage indeed. So as we enter into this time of worship together, let us take a moment to breathe together. Fill your body with breath, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity for stillness, to tune in to our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep, to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time of love, a time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time for love, a time for hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. Please join me in the chorus. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven.
Each week, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. We join in this lighting in solidarity with thousands of other Unitarian churches across the country and the world, lighting chalices in their churches and homes and other places today, reminding us that we are connected to one another and to a larger community of faith and love. Today we have a young chalice lighter with us, a first-time chalice lighter. We invite a child to light the chalice as a reminder of the hope for our future. As Adelaide Barker lights the chalice here in the sanctuary for our virtual community, if you have a chalice nearby, we invite you to light that now and enter in the chat where your chalice is lit.
We are honored to announce first-time chalice lighter Adelaide Barker. She is the daughter of Michael and Reese Barker and the sister of Dublin and Cardiff Barker. Her favorite activity is gymnastics, and she loves dragons. Congratulations, Adelaide. Here's your first-time chalice lighter pin.
With our chalices lit in all of our spaces, we offer you this call to worship from Mary Oliver. This is Gethsemane. The grass never sleeps, or the roses, nor does the lily have a secret eye that shuts until morning. Jesus said, "Wait for me," but the disciples slept. The cricket has such splendid fringe on its feet, and it sings, have you noticed, with its whole body, and heaven knows if it ever sleeps. Jesus said, "Wait for me," and maybe the stars did. Maybe the wind wound itself into a silver tree and didn't move. Maybe the lake far away, where he once walked on as on blue pavement, lay still and waited, wide awake. Oh, dear bodies, slumped and eyes shut, that could not keep that vigil. How they must have wept, so utterly human, knowing this too must be part of the story. Come, let us worship together.
Join me in getting cozy for our time for all ages. Our story this morning is The Train, written by Jody Callahan and illustrated by Georgia Leslie. The story this morning will help us explore how we can hold space for bittersweet feelings, honoring when we feel pain or loss while celebrating our connections to each other. Let's listen. Ashley was smaller than her sister, but old enough to walk herself to school every morning and back again at the end of the day. She took her time when she walked, kicking dirt to uncover stones and pieces of colored glass, which she kept on the windowsill in her bedroom. The sun was exceptionally bright this afternoon. Ashley had to shield her eyes with a hand to see the road. A car sped past her, billowing up a cloud of dirt. It stung her eyes, and she stopped to wipe them. Squinting, she followed the tire tracks up the road to where the old train station used to stand. A small figure stood in the tall grass by the tracks. Ashley recognized the way that the figure leaned against his cane. She smiled and broke into a run. The beads in her backpack jingled in their tin, and her school books bounced heavy against her back. "Uncle!" she shouted. "Uncle!" Ashley's uncle turned and greeted her with a smile. "Hello, Toos," he said, extending his good arm to give her a hug. She rushed into him, burrowing her face in his wool jacket. He was warm against her cheek, and she inhaled deeply. He smelled like sage. She pulled away and looked up at him. "Uncle, what are you doing here?" The corner of his eyes crinkled, and one side of his mouth turned up in a lopsided smile as Ashley's uncle looked at her, but she could see the light in his eyes. He focused his gaze down the train tracks. The planks of wood between the metal rails were rotting and broken from years and years of weather damage. It was easy to see the community no longer thought of this place. "I'm waiting for the train," he let out in a small voice. Ashley looked down the track too. It was worn and overgrown with weeds, no longer fit for a train. She giggled. "Uncle, the train doesn't come here anymore." "I know, Toos." He shifted his weight onto his cane, His smile drooped slowly. I know. Ashley stopped smiling as well and furrowed her brow in concern. What's wrong? Why are you so sad? A look of indecision crossed his face as he glanced down at his small niece. Come here, he said. Uncle hobbled over to a piece of concrete foundation left from the old train station. He sat down and balanced his cane atop his knees. Ashley followed, sitting in the tall grass by his feet. She plucked a dandelion and rubbed it against the back of her hand, tracing a heart with the yellow stain. I'm sad because our people have forgotten about this place, her uncle said, looking off down the track. Ashley almost turned to see what he was looking at, but she knew nothing was there. She had walked by this place 1,000 times. She focused on her uncle, studying the lines on his small face. Wisps of gray hair fluttered around his head as the wind blew from behind him. Yet he looked young to her right now. A long time ago there was a train that ran through this place, he began. It would come maybe once a month to drop things off, things like rice and potatoes, stuff from outside of the reserve. He took his handkerchief out of his pocket and placed it on his lap, picking at loose threads as he spoke. Giju would send me and your grandfather Timmy down to meet the train because we were the oldest. We would all line up here to wait with our baskets, and after we got our rations, we would walk home. Timmy and I would always sneak a potato each to eat on the way. We ate them raw, like they were apples. Ashley giggled at the thought of Grandfather Timmy and Uncle as small boys eating raw potatoes. Her uncle continued. One day, Giju sent the 4 oldest kids out with baskets. It was early fall, but she made us take our winter coats. She was crying, and we didn't know why. Giju didn't cry often, but when she got started, she couldn't stop. She gave us each a kiss and sent us to the train station. He looked down at the foundation he was sitting on. When we arrived, there were children from all over the village. I saw my cousin, Benny, so I asked him what was going on. He didn't know. Uncle pointed to the broken track. The train was already here. A few men were standing by the open cargo doors. They pointed at us and said, "Okay, you first," and then they put us on the train. Ashley wanted to speak, but her uncle's expression stopped her. He began again. My brother and sister were a bit younger than me, so they got put on a different car. Timmy and I were bigger, and they moved us to the front. When we got to the school, the nuns told us to get inside. They took our clothes, they took our baskets, they cut off all of our hair. They told us we were no longer native, and if we put up a fuss, we were hit, sometimes worse. His voice trailed off into a whisper. We weren't allowed to speak our language. We weren't allowed to be Innu. Ashley's uncle picked up his handkerchief and blew his nose. He clutched it tightly in his right hand, his shoulders trembling softly. Were you sad to leave? Ashley asked. He nodded, and his voice began to tremble again. There was nobody beside us waving goodbye. There was nobody there to hug us and to kiss us, or to remember who we were when we left that day. I'm sorry, Uncle. Ashley choked through her tears. He placed his good hand on her shoulder. It's not your fault, Toos. He lifted her chin and smiled at her. You and your sister make me so happy. When I hear you laugh and see you run and play, it makes me think that one day everything will be okay again. One day we won't be so sad. He paused and looked toward the track for a moment. I wanted you to know where your family has come from, Ashley, so you can be proud of where you are going. Ashley wiped her tears with her sleeve. Is that why you come sit here, Uncle, to remember what happened? He nodded and thought for a moment. I come here to remember what happened, but I also come here to wait. What are you waiting for? She asked, craning her neck to look back at the tracks, broken and rusted, still in the evening light, just how she had left them. I'm waiting for what we lost that day to come back to us, he said. You can see here that Uncle is remembering all the things that were lost that day. His family, their smiles, their traditions. Why? Ashley asked. Because if I don't, who will? He asked, closing his eyes tightly. Ashley reached up and touched Uncle's fingers. They uncurled around her hand, rested, small, inside his. He looked at his little niece. She smiled up at him and said, Don't worry, Uncle. I will wait with you. Join me now in blessing our community with song as we sing our children to their religious exploration classes.
May your mind be open to new learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
This morning, I offer a little personal testimony about bittersweet courage. In my 30-year practice of long-term therapy, I worked with many clients who were dealing with issues that had their roots in childhood abuse. The therapy process was one of pain and grace and courage as they showed up each week working to discard obsolete defenses and reclaim hidden parts of themselves as they slowly grew to know and love and live through the whole of their true selves as they hung in with the bittersweet process of therapy, of healing. For me, as their guide and companion through the grief, the depression, the anger, heartache, and the joy and the humor and love unveiled that constitute the healing journey, these sessions were more spiritual than church. People often ask me, how do you do it, listening to people's problems all day long? No. Imagine this job. I had the sacred privilege of meaningful presence, of witnessing deep courage and the power of vulnerability and the triumph of reclaiming wholeness. I also received the healing alchemy of bitter and sweet coming together. These brave souls kept my heart open and infused with awe for the depth of human possibility in the bittersweet. And I am grateful and humbled.
As a community, we can create a space of that kind of deep presence to hear one another's lives and journeys and joys and sorrows and hold space for each other as a reminder that we are not alone on this journey through life. So each week we create some time to share our joys and sorrows with one another, to share them in the chat for those of you that are online and aloud here with each other. A reminder that you can share your joys and sorrows online at any time or fill out one of the blue cards in our joys and sorrows bin over there in the corner. As we begin, we continue to hold in our hearts and mourn the loss of beloveds Warren Bean, whose life we will celebrate this afternoon with a service, and Diane Hines. We'll have a service for Diane in the near future. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to speak their name aloud into this community of love that we might hold them with you. May the arms of this community hold all of our joys and sorrows, those spoken aloud and those that remain silent and close to our hearts. May we feel the grace in the room and the grace that surrounds us and be transformed by the spirit of life and love with a warmth to celebrate the joys and a gentleness to soothe our aching hearts. Breathe with me. Tune in to your breath. Breathe into this sacred space. Breathe with this beloved community filled with loving kindness. Breathe with wholeheartedness. Listen to what is calling you in the silence.
Our music for reflection brings to life the reflective words of Unitarian transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson in his poem, Music. Through his verses, seeking solace and spiritual connection from the pain and melancholy of the world, he reminds us of the power and the beauty to be found in the darker, more bittersweet moments of life. Before we hear the choir, we'd like for you to hear the words of his text by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Let me go where'er I will. I bear a sky-born music still. It sounds from all things old. It sounds from all things young, from all that's fair and all that's foul. peals of a cheerful song. It's not only in the rose, it's not only in the bird, not only where the rainbow glows, nor in the song of womanhood, but in the darkest, meanest things. There, always, something sings. 'Tis not in the high stars alone, nor in the cup of budding flowers, nor in the red breast's mellow tones, nor in the bow that smiles in showers, but in the mud and scum of things. There, always, something sings.
Choir, thank you. Wow. You all sound so good. Carrie, man, you all sound so good. Like better and better every time. It's really beautiful and extraordinary to listen to. As Bill Reed was mentioning to me earlier, it's not every day that you get to sing about the mud and scum of things. It's bittersweet. I used to consider myself a pretty optimistic, sanguine person, as some ancient philosophers called it. I've been known to come at life and work with a great deal of enthusiasm, but over the past several years, I've noticed a shift away from that orientation toward a more melancholic, heavy, intense ache almost. An ache for all that troubles our world. An ache for more spiritual depth and connection, an ache fueled by sorrow and loss and grief, a longing for something that even now is difficult to capture in words. But the feeling can be captured often in art, this bittersweet longing. In my recent trip to Puerto Vallarta, the art of Frida Kahlo appears everywhere, and I felt that ache, that twinge of melancholy looking at her self-portrait. Here's a couple of other artistic examples from high school AP art students in San Gabriel, California. High schoolers. When I saw these, I felt that same kind of tug in my heart. My eyes welled up with tears. I could feel it more than I could express in words, the way in which these student artists were conjuring up the pain of their own lives and expressing it in art and beauty. Music and poetry capture this same feeling too. We heard it just now in our Music for Reflection, in the song shared by Anne Marie, how certain songs, especially those in a minor key, crack something open in you. Maybe bring you to tears in surprising ways, and how that feeling just opens something up or shakes something loose, and it becomes an experience that we might start to seek out over and over again. Poets capture it too. In our call to worship, we heard Mary Oliver's words from the collection she wrote after the death of her partner, and we feel that ache and pain. Oh, the dear bodies slumped and eyes shut that could not keep that vigil. How they must have wept. So utterly human, knowing this too must be part of the story. Indeed, it was in the Garden of Gethsemane, the title of Oliver's poem, where the Gospels say Jesus went before the crucifixion and where his deep anguish was felt. Surely a bittersweet longing, for he knew what was to come. Even nature, in its ever-changing beauty that we know cannot last, evokes those feelings. In her book, Bittersweet, How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole, author Susan Cain writes of the many benefits found in these kinds of deeply felt experiences through art, music, poetry, through grief and pain and loss, and that in them we experience more profound beauty and deep connection, transcendence, nostalgia, and a connection to our common humanity. Cain also uses the phrase, an intense awareness of the passing of time, and how that in that intensity of awareness, we feel that stab, that pinch, that piercing feeling of joy and sorrow all mixed up together. It's Susan Cain's book that is the inspiration for this whole service. I found the book so deeply moving and transformational. I am on the second reading of it. Much of her work and ideas are woven throughout, so I want to be sure to give credit where credit is due. Having lived these past several years with COVID, lockdowns, global death on such a massive scale, it's so hard to comprehend. Political turmoil, rising fascism, and so much more, not to mention our own personal losses and crises. How could we not experience that intense awareness of the passing of time? And how, if we allow that awareness to surface fully, can we not feel all of that sorrow and ache and pain and longing for ourselves and for humanity, for just all of it? As I've worked on this topic, I began to realize that it wasn't that I never possessed these qualities or mindset, but rather that in the course of the last few years, they've risen more rapidly, more acutely to the surface, to my awareness and spiritual life. And I've not pushed them away or shut them down. Instead, I've welcomed them to take root inside me and find a home, and have found such beautiful comfort in their presence, in the way bittersweet and melancholy seem to make me a little more open-hearted, a little more compassionate, and slow me down from the furious pace of the outside world. But our culture, especially our uniquely colonialist American culture, tends not to celebrate or even encourage this kind of mindset. Quite the opposite, in fact. Did you know that we Americans smile more than any other society on earth? And I know it's part of your brain probably goes, but that's a good thing, right? I'm not judging. In many countries, however, smiling is sometimes viewed as foolish or dishonest or both. Many societies believe that expressing happiness invites bad luck and is a sign of selfishness or shallowness and uninteresting, even sinister mind. In her book, Bittersweet, Kane tells the story of when McDonald's opened their first franchise in Russia and the puzzlement from local workers by its ethos of employee cheeriness. What is this American smile, they asked. We are all serious about life because it is a struggle. As one employee put it, we were always afraid of America's smile. But these smiles are really just a cover if we look deeper at the psychological data. Even before COVID, and even before the deepening political chasm, Americans suffered from high rates of anxiety and depression, with more than 15 million of us taking antidepressants for 5 years or more. College students, in particular, show ever-soaring rates of anxiety and depression, along with, according to researchers, that soaring pressure to appear happy and victorious. And suicide rates among the young are rising too. In a series of interviews with Susan Cain, students at Princeton, which was Cain's alma mater, who exhibit this public-facing image of ease and victoriousness and style, seeming shininess of their lives, revealed to her their hidden angst and this pressure, and name it effortless perfection. Effortlessly perfect. That certainly sums up my collegiate experience, and I didn't even have Instagram. In many ways, it resonates with an inner battle I have been fighting my whole life. Perhaps many of you have as well. So many of us do it because it's so deeply culturally ingrained in us, and it's exacerbated now by the proliferation of social media. We feel this need to make life look easy, to make it look like it takes a little bit of effort, just a little, but filled with accomplishment, whether it's a perfectly organized house with matching bins in one's pantry, or achievements of your children in school, sports, clubs, and let's be real, they feel it too. Or rising up the professional ladder while still maintaining an active and beautiful social life. It's about winning at every facet of life and making it look easy. And we all know life is anything but easy. Let's be honest, we tend to lead with the American smiles and not the mess. And this quest for effortless perfection has its roots for us in religion, in our theological history, to be exact. Much of our dominant American culture stems from the early roots of white settlers, the Puritans, the Calvinists, who came here fleeing religious persecution, and embedded in their theological position of predestination, that all people were pre-assigned to their eternity in either heaven or hell, and hell was a terrifying place. People had no power to escape or change their fate. What they could do, however, was outwardly prove their virtue through their tireless labor and work. The idea being that one needed to prove to one's neighbors that they were the winners, that they might be the chosen bound for heaven. So this effortless perfection runs deep, deep embedded in our religious blood, and fueled, of course, by capitalism that worships business and work and productivity and the wealth and facade of ease that might generate. So cultivating a bittersweet mindset then offers an antidote to what many have deemed the culture of toxic positivity, that false ideology that sorrow and pain should be overcome, or that we should move on from it or hide it away from public view because of the impact it might have. And even as I hear myself say these words, I can think, well, that's just wrong and silly. And I know that so many of us easily succumb to this tyranny every day. So if the roots of this effortless perfection and tyranny of positivity are theological, then the antidote is too. A bittersweet mindset is about embracing the value and the deep spiritual impact of sorrow, grief, loss, and especially longing, and discovering a wholeness that lives inside, especially when we allow these qualities to exist, to have a welcome place in our being. And these are the very qualities that grow our compassion and grow our empathy and grow our ability to truly see the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to seek a deeper connection with ourselves and with the holy, to fight for justice and freedoms, and to truly try and feel our interconnectedness. We've all experienced grief, deep, aching, painful grief that makes us feel so alone. And it's hard to remember that, in fact, we are not alone. In this community this year, we have had 6 deaths of members and friends, not to mention the deaths that have occurred in the lives of our beloved members and friends. It's been a lot, so very much. So when we allow that grief to live on the surface, to give it a welcome place, instead of trying to shove it away or hide it from the world, we honor our shared humanity, and we offer a bridge to deeper connection. We need to help each other remember that grief is one part of a whole, complete self. And it lives right alongside joy and love and contentment. And we cycle through those feelings and emotions every day. So let us make space for our tears and our longing. For if we cannot begin here together in this community, where else is there? But how do we cultivate this mindset, this orientation to the world and ourselves, this bittersweetness? We do it by normalizing grief and pain and sorrow and allowing ourselves to feel it and express it with one another and not shooing it away. By remembering that longing means reaching beyond, moving toward. Longing is active and creative, and turning to art and music and poetry, film, sad movies, walks in nature, allowing yourself to just be with your heart's own longing. In the epic poem, the Aeneid, Virgil uses the phrase, seeing tears in things. When we see the tears in things, we're embracing the courage to welcome our bittersweet selves. In many ways, worship serves as a space for bittersweet contemplation. Because like all the other things I just mentioned, it invites us to be in touch with that spiritual longing, that depth, which is both within and beyond us, that holy, divine love that when I find a moment to tune in, brings tears to my eyes almost all the time. And worship just helps me get there a little bit faster. It helps me see the tears in things. And the more we practice, the more we see the tears in all things and can drink them in and call them beautiful. Because bittersweet practices invite deeper compassion and empathy. And I'm not suggesting that joy doesn't have a place in our lives, not at all. Joy is the sweet in the bitter. It was C.S. Lewis that wrote, "Joy is a sharp, wonderful stab of longing." I've discovered that living only in the realm of positivity, or pushing myself there under the illusion that it is the best way to charge through life, leaves life a little flat, a little one note. But embracing the bittersweet, which takes more courage than we realize, makes life more colorful, more powerful, more lasting in some strange way. When we fully open ourselves up to the bittersweet, to longing, we experience beauty and love differently, more vibrantly, even if what it conjures up in us feels like sadness and melancholy. Because there, in that holy place, is the wholeness we seek. May we find the courage that awaits us in the wholeness to be discovered in the bittersweet, the longing of life. May it be so. Amen. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, holy mystery. There lives a longing inside each of us, a reaching beyond the pretense and positivity, a longing for deeper connection, meaning, a longing laced with sorrow and grief, too long quieted, forced to simmer below the surface. May we find the courage to embrace it, to hold it in a place of honor, to love ourselves in the poignant pain, and let it feed our souls and share it with one another. may we tend to that garden of sorrow in our hearts, there sowing seeds of greater compassion, of wholehearted love, of spiritual depth, of wholeness and worthiness that resides within. For it is in our seeing the tears and things that brings us closer to our own truth, our divinity, the essence of all that is our life and all that it may still become. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen.
Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave 'em laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way, but now old friends, they're acting strange. They shake their heads, they say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Friends, I invite you to rise as you are willing and able, and place your hands over your heart for our closing blessing. Take a moment and look around. Look at one another, at this beautiful, beloved community. Let us find the courage to embrace the bittersweet beauty that surrounds us, to open our eyes to the intense awareness of life's passing. May our longing and pain become our creative offering, our blessing for the world. We extinguish the flame of our chalice, but not the hope for the future, our courage, and our bittersweet longing, or the love we share for the world. Blessed are we all. Go in peace.